Hotel family, welcome back to the Chosen Few channel. Today we're going to be talking about rescue attempt from Africa, savage murder, and signs from God in dreams. That's right, rescue attempt from Africa, savage murder, and signs from God in dreams. And for this, I'm going to be taking you guys back to the slave narratives, but we're going to the state of Georgia this time, and we're going to be looking at the life of a man named Shad Richards. May your name live on forever, and may your memory never die. Now, we actually have a lot of interesting information preserved about Shad Richards. We know that he was interviewed for this story that I'm going to be quoting on September 14th, 1936 in Griffin, Georgia. We know that he was born January the 13th, 1846. We know that he was born on the Simpson Neal's plantation. We know the name of his father, and we also know the name of his mother. And contained within his story, we're going to see a rescue attempt from Africa, a savage murder, and signs from God in dreams. Let's get started, family. You see, it says Shad Richards was born January the 13th, 1846 on the Simpson, Neal's plantation from Zebulon in Pike County. His father, Alfred Richards, had been brought from Africa and was owned by Mr. Williams on an adjoining plantation. So right there, they're telling you that this guy, Shad Richards, his father, Alfred Richards, was brought directly from Africa to the Americas, enslaved. Imagine that. He goes on to talk about the name of his mother, Easter Richards, and he says that his mother was enslaved on the plantation next to the plantation that his father was on. So his father, getting passes from his master, ended up marrying his mother, having a child, and since Shad Richards, the child, was born on his mother's plantation, he was on the Neal plantation, and his father was on the next plantation over. He goes on to say at one point that his real name was Shadrach, and his brother, just older than he was named Meshach. Sometimes the mothers named the babies, but most of the time the masters did. Mr. Neal did Shad's naming. That's some interesting information. In slavery, sometimes the mothers named the child, but a lot of times the masters named the children that were born. Now his name Shad Richards, is short for Shadrach, and he had a brother named Meshach, and we know that comes from the Bible, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the story from the Old Testament. Now he goes on to say Shad's father came 2 or 3 times a month to see his family on Mr. Neal's plantation, always getting a pass from his master, for niggers didn't dare go off their own plantation without a pass. So remember, his father is on one plantation, him and his mother is on the other. So his father, being a dedicated and loving father, came to see them 2 or 3 times a month. Check this out, family. Before the war, Shad's grandfather came from Africa to buy his son and take him home, but was taken sick, and both father and son died. Now imagine that. Remember, the father, Alfred Richards, was brought directly from Africa. So during the life of Shad Richards, the son of Alfred Richards, the grandfather of Shad Richards, who was still in Africa, came to the Americas to try to buy his son and acquire his freedom and take him back home to Africa. Rescue attempt from Africa, savage murder, signs from God in dreams, family. That's powerful. But unfortunately, he says that his grandfather and his father got sick and they was unable to make it back to their homeland. Right? But check this out, family. Let's go a little bit further. That is interesting, man. So we know, just think about it though. So we know that individuals were trying to come from Africa to save their loved ones, free their loved ones, purchase them, rescue them, bring them back home. You always have the thought in your mind, like, okay, if slavery went on, why didn't anyone come to help? Why didn't anyone try to come save us? Why didn't anyone try to come bring us back? If we meant anything to the people in Africa, why didn't they try to come rescue us? And now we see a primary account that someone, this was before the Civil War popped off, someone actually came from Africa to try to get his son. So family, now this is from the records of the enslaved. This is our ancestors' records. We know it to be true. They were coming trying to rescue some people when they could, right? And we know if it was him, he wasn't the only one, family. Y'all need to know this information, but you know this information when you go into these books and you read the documentation. I'm the real bookworm for a reason. I'm here to remind you guys, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to remind you guys. Now, check this out, family. And remember, rescue attempt from Africa, savage murder. Let's talk about the savage murder. He says he was rich when Shad is speaking of his master. He was rich with plenty of money, always good to his slaves, and didn't whip them much. So his master, his owner, was good and didn't whip them much. But his son, he says, the son of the master, but his son, Mr. Jimmy, sure was a bad one. Listen to this degenerate. Sometimes, y'all seen that Jeffrey Dahmer are all on Netflix right now. Listen to this degenerate. Sometimes he'd use the cowhide until it made blisters, whooping someone. Then hit them with the flat of the handsaw until they broke. And next, dip the victim into a tub of salty water. It often killed the nigger, but Mr. Jimmy didn't care. He whipped Shad's uncle to death. So this savage individual, not only did he obviously take pleasure out of these brutal murders, but the individual that we're talking about, Shad Richards, his uncle was a victim of this guy, Mr. Jimmy. So his uncle, may your name live on forever and may your memory never die. Rescue attempt from Africa, savage murder, signs from God and dreams. You have to remember, family, what your ancestors endured. And you have to remember, on planet Earth, that it's just real. On planet Earth, a person will do to you anything that you cannot stop them from doing to you, family. Look at this. I didn't throw this in the title, but this is interesting. He says, if it wasn't on your own plantation, you sure had to have a pass. When a slave wanted to join the church, listen, when a slave wanted to join the church, the preacher asked his master if he was a good nigger. If the master spoke up for you, you were taken in. But if he didn't, you weren't. The churches had a pool for the Baptist preachers to baptize in, and the Methodist preachers sprinkle. So we see a couple of things. Let's go from the bottom to the top. Baptist preachers had a pool, Methodist preachers had a sprinkle. So we see differences in the denominations way back then. Interesting. But he also said that the keys to salvation was in the hands of the master. If you wanted to join the church, if you wanted to be a part of the body of Christ, the pastor didn't search your heart. He didn't ask you to confess God and be baptized. He asked the master if you were a good nigger. You got to know this history, family. That's wild, trying to control the keys to eternal salvation. And then the same individual who's trying to hold salvation over an individual will read the Bible back at his house and know that Christ is supposed to be the head. God is supposed to be the head. So contradictory. So sick. But rescue attempt from Africa, savage murder, signs from God and dreams. Let's just try to wrap this up, family. There's a lot of stuff that I could talk about in here, but I don't want to hold you all day. Look, check this out. Last thing, then I'm out. He says signs were more true in the olden days than now. God led his people by dreams then. One night, check this out. He says signs were more true in the olden days than now. God led his people by dreams then. So he has some kind of understanding that God can work through dreams. And he has been doing this since the olden times. But in these latter times, it hasn't been happening as much. He says, one night, Shad dreamed of a certain road he used to walk over often. And at the fork, he found a lead pencil. Then, a little further on, he dreamed of a purse with $2.43 in it. Next day, he went further, and just like the dream, he found the pocketbook with $2.43 in it. So you can choose to believe the ancestor or not, that's on you. But we talking about Shad Richards, born January the 13th, 1846. May your name live on forever and may your memory never die. Rescue attempt from Africa, savage murder, signs from God, and dreams. Y'all